Right, what have we got here? Well, it's so big the box hardly fits in the frame, look, so it's got to be a good one. It's Astrolux again this time, and I've been looking forward to doing this one. It's about a month late, this one. I've had a lot of things on, I've not been very well, and there's been one thing and another, so I'm trying to catch up with things. I've had a lot of editing to do, so hopefully I'm going to catch up with the reviews, although I am away at the weekend, but I'll try and catch up. So enough of me whinging. It is the Astrolux FT03. Now this is using the luminous SST40-W LED, or emitter if you wish to call it that, which I'm quite interested to see. So we're going to quickly get into the box, enough messing about. So a large box this time. Now this is a 26650 flashlight, so it's using the large batteries. So here's your bits and pieces. So let's work out what you get here. So get shot of that. So essentially, in the box, that's what you get. So let's get rid of the box so I can actually talk about things. Boosh, there you go, kicked out the window. Right, so remember, do not eat, okay? Not good for you. I presume that's to keep moisture at bay. And then there's the manual. Now, luckily, this uses one of my favorite UIs. When I say UI, I just mean user interface. And it is the Narsil version 1.3, which is an open source UI. And it's extremely good because it makes sense. You can picture it in your mind. Although, having said that, I have done a separate video just on the advanced operations because a lot of people have a lot of problems working out the advanced configuration. The problems arise because there's no screen on these things. There's no haptic feedback. The only feedback you can have is a flash of a light. So it's a bit like learning another language. In order to interact with the advanced options, in order to get feedback from the driver there, you have to read flashes and things. It's a bit like becoming a Morse code reader. So I understand why people have those problems. My advice is, unless you need to change the thermal throttling or enable strobe modes and things like that, just leave it for now. If you do, I have a video on the S43 config, which uses Narsil, and that shows you how to go in and out of options, how to put the strobe on, how to turn it off, and how the UI works. So do that if you want to do that, but I'm going to memorize this. There, I've memorized that. Wallop. Right, so let's see what else you get here. Right, there's a funny bag here, so let's get in there. Let's see what this is. Now this looks like some sort of lanyard to me. Yes, it is. Okay, so you've got a lanyard there and two O-rings. Now, what's the point of that? Well, the O-rings go between two machined parts. So there'll be one here and here because this tube is removable. So you've got a screwed part here and here. So between those threaded metal parts, you need a O-ring. Now, these are quite pliable ones. These are probably a 1.5 or 1 mil. Now, this just ensures waterproofing. Without these, obviously, water can easily leak in because you can't have the tolerances so good that, you know, it's a perfect fit. At these prices, you're just not going to get that, so you need these O-rings. So it's nice to see you get two spare ones, so I will keep them to one side. And there's your lanyard. And again, you know, I've gone through what lanyards are. You put them into the handle there. I tend not to use them. I mean, this isn't such a bad one. It's a double-skinned one, like a Olight. So that's nice to see. So double-skinned. Feels okay. I'll just see how tough it is. Yeah. Not bad. And what about this bit? Yeah, I'm pulling that with full force, and there's your little cinch, which is removable. It's spring loaded. It's there if you want it. There are people who really enjoy these things. I know, I think it was a Dinner Talk Fung or whatever the hell he's called on the channel, and another couple of other people were saying that they highly recommend them. So you get it if you want it. That's what I've got to say. Right, so let's go on to the main event. So like I say, this is a 26650. So instead of the usual 18650 batteries, here is a Samsung 30Q. I'm going to be using the larger. Now look at the size difference. Whopper. So because of that size difference, you're certainly getting a bigger capacity. This, for example, is about 3000 milliamp hours. Whereas this one, this is 5,200 milliamp hours, so massive. And I've picked the high drain one, although it's not the highest you can get. It's got a pulse of 30 and a constant of 15. What that means is, for short durations, this manufacturer will guarantee that it can output at 30 amps. Unfortunately, if you want to continue doing that, it can only do 15 amps, but that's more than enough, and especially for this light. For about 2,500 lumens, that's not a problem. So there's the torch there. Right, so let's talk about this. Now, I've been looking forward to this because I quite like some of the Astrolux. I find some of them a little bit bulky, but I mean, look at that. Now, for a long time, I've whinged on about buttons many a time, saying I don't like a side button. Why don't I like a side button? Because they can automatically, or by accident in a bag, be knocked on. Now, look, that can't. See the way it's flat? It's in a recessed section. There you go. You've just solved the problem of whacking that on. I mean, theoretically, that could knock on something, but luckily, this has the Narsil UI, which is fantastic because it has electronic lockout, so you can prevent that from activating temporarily. It doesn't have a tail clicker, which I like because it's out of the way, but on this size of light, you're probably not going to be holding it like that. You tend to hold it more like this, which is fine. And there's your heat sinks there, although they're not particularly good heat sinks. They're not necessary at this output with such a large head anyway, because I've done a little bit of testing and it's been absolutely fine. So I quite like the thing. I like that you can find it easily. And look, what's this underneath? It has USB charging. Now, I'm going to go into that once I get the battery in, because it's the type of USB charging that I love. I'm sick and tired of all these manufacturers bringing out USB charging on flashlights, and it's damn micro USB. Can we please move away from USB? We don't want to use micro USB anymore. Please move to Type C. It's the modern interface. You can put a lot more juice through it. All my things use it. The car has it. My action camera has it. My phone uses it. All my stuff uses Type C. So I'm happy to see that Astrolux has gone and put in behind this flap section a Type C. So I've got to do it. I always have to do it. So it's time to celebrate. Hooray! Whee! Now, I know I'm taking the mick here, but it really is a big thing, because there are lights which are just coming out now which still have micro USB. Please, I'm begging these manufacturers, move away from micro USB, go straight to Type C. Thank you very much. And I'm going to stop whinging and move on. Okay, so there's your charging port. Now, I can't obviously show you what happens without putting a battery in, so let's get this open. And as I say, it opens top and bottom, so this central tube section moves, so you can open it at the top here or the bottom. So I'm just going to leave that intact momentarily and take the bottom off. Now, in here, you might have heard there is an insert. Now, this is a collar. So if you didn't have a 26650 and you thought, well, I don't need all that capacity anyway, you could forgo that and say, well, I do have an 18650. You can put it in this collar and use it in this light. So you've got that option. Now, bear in mind, obviously, as you can see, you're wasting a lot of space. You're not going to get the capacity, but certainly you're probably going to get enough output to run this at full anyway. So that's there if you want it. So there's your collar. You can also use this on a 21700 battery. It's still not such a common sell yet, but it may increase in popularity. Still, the 26650s are the way to go at the moment. So boosh, that goes in there. And as you can see, it's got double springs down there, nice and clean, no garbage. And when it comes to the threading, nice. There's your O-ring. It hasn't been greased, but it doesn't seem to need it. You can grease that up with a bit of silicone if you want. So let's get the cell in. I'm using a button top for this. Sorry, I'm using a flat top, I should say. I'm getting a little bit confused. So pop that in there. The threads are a little bit loud there, but okay. Right, so once this tightens up, you should get 2 flashes. So there you go. There's your momentary flashes. That tells you that it's now ready to rock. And you have your running light. This is going to cause something of a parasitic drain, but it's going to be very small, especially on a 5200 milliamp hour battery. So let's go through the charging, and then I'll tell you about the UI. But this is a really hefty light. I mean, if you look at the size comparison, there's the Lumen Top GT Mini, which is very nice. I thought the name was a little bit naughty, and if you check out my review, you'll find out why. But look, size difference. Big difference, look at that. Now that's an extremely capable light, but this just absolutely annihilates it. I mean, look at the size of the reflector alone. Bear in mind, this is outputting just over 1,000-ish. This is quoted at about 2,500-ish, but I'm guessing, and from what I can see, it appears to me to be about 1,900 to 2,000, depending on the battery, obviously, but You're getting at least 2000, let's put it that way. So this is a massive thrower in comparison to that. So let's go through the charging here. So there's your running light, and if you want to charge, you need a type C and a cell in. So I've got the cell in, and then you just plug it in, and what happens is this changes into the Eye of Sauron. So if you're a Lord of the Rings fan, this is perfect. So you get this until it charges, and then this will change. So once it's changed from the Eye of Sauron, it means that it's fully charged. There is a battery check feature on this, which I shall go through. So that's just to show you the USB. It does work, which is fine. It doesn't seem to add a lot of bulk. A lot of these manufacturers will add bulk when you get charging mechanisms added. That doesn't seem to have been the case. They've done really well here, Astrolux. It's not too, it's a big unit, but it's not too heavy. So let's go through the UI. It's very, very simple. So basics here. So turn it on and you go to moonlight mode, and then it's a ramping system. So very simple. Instead of 14,000 modes, you just click and hold to go up. And there's a momentary flicker, which you may not see on camera, which means full. Click and hold is reverse ramping, so it goes back down to moonlight. Now on moonlight, I'm guessing with that sort of reflector, that's probably about one lumen-ish. And the idea of moonlight modes is it doesn't ruin your night vision, and it doesn't ruin other people's night vision or give away your location. You can read a map, and it doesn't ruin your night vision, because obviously if you flash something in your face or your buddy's faces, if you're out in an operation or you are camping, for example, you're protecting the night vision. So in complete darkness, they're still accustomed to that hyper low level of light. So there's your basics, so ramping, and then you've got a double click. So if I double click, turbo, bang, straight up to the absolute maximum it can output. So that's hot just there, right on my hand there. In fact, I'm going to check some of the temperature. So if I can find it, let's have a look. There it is. So while that's running, I shall get my temperature gauge out, and I'll tell you a little bit more about this unit. So I'm going to let that heat up just a bit so I can take a reading. So as I said, this is using a FET driver. It is an IPX7. Now I prefer IPX8. IPX8 means you can drop it into 2 meters of water. It isn't going to break as long as it's not there for more than 2 hours. Now the reason this isn't IPX8 and it's only IPX7 is because of these daft flaps. It's just one of those things. You lose waterproofing by virtue of the fact that you have this entry point. Yes, they've done a good job. It's pretty deep. I'll give them that. Okay, fair enough. And it feels rather tight, and it's out of the way, and it's flush. But there are better ways. Look, the Hikerlite SC01, look at their method for... There's their charging port behind a screwed Olight section. In other words, it doesn't hamper the waterproofing. So it's a shame they couldn't manage something similar on this. I would have liked to have seen that, but maybe for ease of use they decided we'll just go for this option, and that's absolutely fine. So you're losing your IPX8 and it drops to IPX7, which is still great. You're going to be fine in the rain and very light levels of water. Obviously jets and underwater, I certainly wouldn't recommend doing that. Like I say, this has a heat step down, so at some point this is going to reach a certain temperature and it's going to step down. So let's just see what temperature it is at this moment in time. So at this moment in time we have about 35 Celsius there. So I'm guessing when that hits, I mean I've got some lights which hit just before they hit 50, the step down. I'm guessing this will step down at about 45, 40ish maybe, so we'll let that heat up a bit more and I shall talk a bit more. The maximum output is quoted as 2400 lumen, but they say 2400 lumen max. I don't think it's probably going to get that unless you do something to alter this, because max settings you don't always get, unfortunately. So you're going to get at least 2000 from this. The impact drop rating on this is 1.5 meters. So according to the manufacturer, no matter the angle, if you drop this from about 1.5 meters onto a hard surface, it should survive. Now that's nice to see. I've got some more expensive lights which only have a 1 meter drop rating. So 1.5 meters, okay, that's fine. And like I say, this will take a 21700 battery, which is nice to see. So I've let that heat up for a generous amount of time there. Now still, that's holdable. Now compare that to some of the other lights like the MSR D4. It becomes impossible to hold unless you hold it like that, because you're scared your fingers are going to melt. So they've done a pretty good job dissipating heat, but it's because you've got this huge reflector here. That helps a lot. So let's check the temperature of that there. What we got now? It's actually gone down, or has it? Right, well, No, sorry, we're nearly up to about 39, 40 degrees. So I'm guessing once that hits about 40 degrees, it will go up the ghost and step down. So no step down yet. So it certainly hasn't got a time step down like the Olights. So I'm pretty impressed with that. You're unlikely to see a lot of step down unless you live in the desert or something like that. But where I live, it's cold all the time, so not a problem. Okay, so let's move some of this out of the way. And let's talk about some of the pros and cons and some of the other modes. So moving on from your ramping, you have your turbo mode there, and then 3 clicks is battery check. So 1, 2, 3. So it flashes out 1, 2, 3. So 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 8. So 3.8 volts is left. So you see, so it flashes it out. You get your main and then your sub there. So 3, 3, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So 3.8 volts. Bearing in mind a full battery should be around 4.2. Don't let it get any lower than about 2.5. So pretty good. I would probably have preferred them to go for a percentage, you know, like 1 flash for 50, 2 for, or 1 flash for 25, 2 for 50, you know, and so on, and 4 for 100%. I think that's sometimes visually more interesting for people, and especially if non-flashaholics probably don't understand what the voltages are anyway. But that option is certainly there. So you're probably thinking, what's 4 clicks? So 1, 2, 3, 4. So you get momentary flashes. Now, E-lockout. I love an E-lockout, because what it means is if that's in your bag or your pocket, you can't accidentally turn it on. Now you can disengage that by changing the circuit back on and off, or 1, 2, 3, 4, and you're back in business. So nice to see an E-lockout. I appreciate that. And then above from that, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that takes you into momentary mode. In other words, some manufacturers will call this tactical. So if I press the button straight up to maximum, if you let go, it goes off. So it's all or nothing. There you go. Now, unfortunately, the only way to get out of that mode is you have to disengage the circuit. So if you undo that, there you go. Bang. So disengage and engage again, and you're back to ramping mode. So nice to see. I really like the UI on this. And this is a super thrower. In fact, I'm going to quickly go over the different reflector types. Now, if you don't like watching the reflector types, because I've had people whinging, they've invented this brilliant thing. It's been around for about 15 years. And what they do is they call it a seek bar, and it's at the bottom of videos. And now it's at the bottom of YouTube videos down here. What you do is you just click and hold and go past the bit where this piece of paper disappears, and you don't have to listen to me talk about reflectors. But for those who want to learn, and bear in mind 90% of the people who watch my videos aren't subscribers, I shall go through it. So basically, you've got your LED and light comes out. Now if you look at the LED up close, it's basically just a substrate with I mean, some are flat, but some have like a piece of plastic over, and the light just comes out willy-nilly. So one way around positioning how the light leaves and enters the world is to put a smooth reflector over it. So this is a side view. So this is a smooth reflector. So you can see it's very, very smooth and reflective. So what happens is your light comes out like that. That's your spill, and it hits the wall like that. Now the bounce light with this reflector is your spot. Now that's distance. That's the whole point of that. So as you can see here, here's your spill, which is just coming directly from the LED. Now this is your spot. The whole point of this spot is it's supposed to travel. You're trying to get this to go as far as possible. Now you only get that with a smooth reflector, but obviously up close it's useless. It just obscures detail, you see. So a smooth reflector isn't the best thing for up close work. Obviously the way around that is you can go and use something like, if I can find it, there you go, a orange peel reflector. So you can see how that's not perfectly smooth. It has a lot of bumps in it. So from the side, instead of smooth like that, it's got little bumps and aberrations. It's certainly not perfect. And you get your spill and a spot, but there's, instead of looking like that, there's more of a transition. So you're trying to get the best of both worlds. You're trying to get a bit of throw, but you're also trying to smooth it out up close. So if I show you with this on the road here, this is the UAE, which I still haven't reviewed. So can you see it doesn't obscure detail as much? There's more of a transition between the spot and the spill. You're not going to get as far as a smooth reflector, but it's better up close. And obviously, if you just reduce the output, you're going to get rid of these problems such as obscuring detail. Now, the far end of the scale is to use a TIR. Here's a little TIR. Now, this is basically brilliant for up close, but not for anything else. You're certainly not going to throw light very far with that. So you've got your LED, and then over the top, you've got this completely solid. This isn't empty. This isn't an empty space. This is a solid piece of plastic. It's a lens. And the light bounces around inside, and it leaves how you dictate based on how this is fashioned on the outside layer. You can have bumps, or you can have it like faceted like a bug's eye. So for example, this is faceted like a bug's eye. So what happens is, even on full, and I'll put that on full, okay, see there is a spot, but it's very hard to define, and the whole thing is very transitioned. It's like one big transition. So beautiful up close, there's no hot spots, fantastic. But obviously, if you want to fire that across a field, you're out of luck. It ain't going to work. So if you want distance, this is the way to go. So let's talk about what I think of this. So move all this junk out the way. Right. So let's talk about some of the cons. Right. Because of the emitter on this, now there are two you can get, but they're both the luminous SST40s. But you do have two options. You can get a cool white or a neutral. I went for a neutral. All the difference is cool white looks whiter, whereas a neutral looks more yellowish. The whole point of that is a neutral white is closer to how you would perceive sunlight. So you probably think, what is the point of that? Okay, I'm going to try and make this basic. If you see a neutral light, it reminds you of the sun, and it's more rosy and warming, and it makes you feel warmer and cozy and things like that. And you don't get as much backscatter, which I'm going to go into it in a moment. Now, a cool white light is less like sunlight, and it's more like the light you would see on an overcast day during the winter, something like that. Sort of a really cold light with not a lot of yellows and browns in it. So not like sunlight very much. Well, unfiltered through clouds anyway. Now, on a cool white light, you get more backscatter. So what's backscatter? Okay, right. If I'm firing this at something, a cool white has the unfortunate problem of the beam is more apparent to the eye. So what happens is it obscures detail. So even at far range, if you're firing that into the distance, you've got to be able to see through the beam to see the target that you're pointing it at, haven't you? So if you have a neutral light, I would argue that you're better off. The reason why you're better off is because, yes, it might appear slightly less bright, but it's obscuring the target less because there's less backscatter. So that's just one thing you may want to think about. So it's a pretty big light. I mean, look at the size of that compared to something like the well-known Convoy C8. This is the C8 Plus, but it's in no way in the same league as output. This is a bit less than 1,000. This is around 1,000. This is the Lumen Top GT Mini. They're both very similar. They both use a smooth reflector. This will go pretty far. This will go slightly further than the C8, but they both get blown away by this. The range on this is pretty good. I've tested it on different ranges, and I'm extremely impressed. It does an excellent job. It even goes further than, if I can find it, I do have a U-torch, which again is reaching the same output levels, if not higher, and it uses a quad emitter. But obviously look at the size of those. The problem is this is more floody. This is the C8F, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, C8F. It's more floody because it's a quad emitter, but look at the size of each individual reflector. They're very small. So if, the problem is the smaller the reflector, the less distance you get really. Now, look at the difference. You're just not going to get the same. So if you want something more floody, get this. If you're not bothered by range and you want something to go in your pocket, you could get these, no problem. If size isn't an issue and you're happy to carry the weight of a 26-600, then go for this, because it's pretty, I mean, you can't really beat it at this price range anyway. And it's got Narsil, which I really like. So good throw, excellent capacity, Type C, Narsil 1.3, E-lock, it's got battery check built in. You're getting near enough 2,000 output. You've got strobes if you want them. I haven't shown you them because they're not turned on by default, but if you did want them, you just go turbo and then immediately go to turbo again, and it takes you into the strobes. They turn off by default. If you want to turn them on, you go to my S43 Narsil config video, and that covers this. But I'm very impressed with this. I mean, a couple of other options you might want to look at, or if you just let me pick one up. Something in this same sort of range. You've got the Convoy S11, which I haven't even reviewed yet, but I have had a quick look at. Now, this is a bit of a strange one. Bigger, uses the same big batteries. Obviously, look at the size of the reflector. You're not going to get it to go as far, and it's an orange peel reflector, so an interesting one there, but a lot cheaper. You've got something like the Hikelite SC01, which you're probably getting the same sort of distance as a Lumentop GT Mini, but it's using the bigger battery, and you've got the USB charging. But this is pretty bright. That's it on turbo there. You get about 2,400, 2,500 on turbo, which is pretty impressive. And then obviously, if weight and size are not an issue and you want a bit more fluid, you go straight for the BLF Q8, which is absolutely fantastic. But look at the size of that, and it takes 4 18650, so it's a whopper. So there's some of your options. I can't even fit them in because this flashlight is so large. I'll put them there. And then you've also got something like, I did do some testing against the Olight for an 18650. This does a decent job. You're getting quite a lot of output. It's an orange peel, but it's more of a tactical torch. It's not really meant for throw, but you can get quite a substantial throw because it's got an excellent output. But what I'll do is I'll go outside and I'll show you some beam shots, because I think it's important to see these at different ranges and compared. So I'm going to give this a mark out of 10. So let me have a think. Right, if you don't mind weight and size, I think as a package, I'm going to give that, let's have a think, 9. And the reason I'm giving it that is because what it does brilliant. I don't want to be biased in that I don't particularly want a large, cumbersome, heavy torch. But I don't want that bias to come in and say, well, I'm going to mark it down because of that, because that's what I want. That's not what everyone else wants. If you want a big thrower, I think for the price, this is fantastic. USB Type-C, excellent emitter. I mean, yeah, the CRI on this emitter is only 70 instead of 80 or higher, which means your colour reproduction isn't as good. However, that doesn't matter because this is a thrower. You're not going to throw this half a mile and then say, no, that man's trousers aren't the right colour. They're slightly different to what I remember. It doesn't matter on a thrower. So I can forgo them for that. It's brilliant. And I've even bothered to put in, it's a double spring on this, which is nice to see. And I'll show you up top. If I get this open. So there's another double spring at the top. So again, you're not going to get sort of spring sag or anything like that. So excellent job. I'm very impressed with them. They've done an excellent job. So I'm going to give that a 9. As a thrower, it does a fantastic job. So well done, Astrolux. I find it very difficult to find bad points other than it's bulky and heavy. But come on, that's just what happens. If you want that level of output and that level of capacity, that's the price you pay. So well done. 9 out of 10. So enough of me waffling. Let's get outside and I'll show you some beam shots.